Katrina, John, Jeff, and friends, I was absolutely delighted to be asked to participate in this evening's proceedings, knowing Ray and having very fond memories of Ray. And you know, I couldn't help thinking when looking around this gathering here this evening that there is just the faintest sound of a chuckle from Ray as he glances down on us pondering philanthropy. Peering over the edge of a pint glass, he might well comment, "Wow, what a prestigious gathering. There's Bill White on week release from Flint, Michigan. And John and Colin McRae now appearing in public after being freed from their anonymous status. And sure, even the youth philanthropy crowd are here, represented by a well-known face or two. And then, of course, there's the latter-day Ford alumni, including Barry Gaberman, whose well-known theory of social change Ray always appreciated and repeated to me on many occasions. Shit happens. And then, after taking a sup of the black stuff, Ray might have characterised this gathering as a glorious mix of the football leagues of philanthropy. We've Tricia and Jeff from the Raikes Foundation, and Jeff double jobbing with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, clearly in the Premier League. But we also have representatives of the first, second, third, fourth, and enthusiastic amateur philanthropies, with the latter categories bringing a supporter base with all the passion and commitment of the Premier and First Division. A passion for the gift of giving that Jeff shared with us so well tonight. However, I know that in life, Ray happily related to philanthropy across this wide spectrum, appreciating the unique contribution of each. And I believe that Jeff's remarks here this evening have a resonance for the whole of philanthropy, wherever they find themselves. Now, between ourselves, coming from the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland, I must be honest that in responding to Jeff Raikes, as CEO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I sort of feel rather like the proverbial leprechaun, except in this case, positioned at the wrong end of the rainbow, given that the pot of gold sits firmly in Seattle. In addition, even my closest friends, when I told them I was coming here tonight, were quick to point out that there's a certain irony in me responding to a Microsoft pioneer, given my grasp of Microsoft Office, which just about extends to emails, but then at a grumble. However, notwithstanding these drawbacks, I'd like to make a couple of points in response to what Jeff has shared with us. Einstein is quoted on many issues, but there are two that I feel always has said something to philanthropy. One, you can't solve your problems with the thinking that caused them in the first place. Current financial markets, please listen. And two, imagination is more important, or certainly as important, as knowledge. So combining these two insights, there's an emphasis on the need to be self-critical, as Jeff referred to be prepared to take risks in posing the counterintuitive and often the naive questions, to value the power and connectivity of interdisciplinary lateral thinking, and respect thinking that refuses to be categorized and burnished with terminology that's perhaps more suited to the markets. In short, I would argue that effective philanthropy is more of an art rather than a science, and that while measurement of effectiveness is critical, if often difficult, even more important are the questions that we pose to ourselves and others, alongside the answers that we are prepared to entertain. It's not good enough for funders, as Jeff referred to adopt what I call the mirror, mirror on the wall syndrome, when dependent grantees may all too often rhyme back, "You are the wisest of them all." The real key to changing this situation as the gatekeepers of philanthropy, and I deliberately say gatekeepers because all too often we are somewhat slow to acknowledge our own privileged position of power, is to be prepared to share what we do not know in order to encourage greater engagement and imagination. And I think Jeff correctly referenced these concerns in his recognition of the importance of those feedback loops in order to reflect the views of grantees, among others. As a long-term community activist I firmly believe that those people most affected by the raw edge of issues and circumstances must be an essential part of any feedback loop. Or to quote the disability rights mantra, nothing about me without me. The issue of partnership has been raised in many discussions about effective philanthropy, and this too is important. However, if we are genuinely interested in effective partnership working and innovation, then partnerships must be about more than the functionality of resource mobilisation, and instead encompass alignments of different experience, perspective, networking potential, and added value dimensions in addition to funding. As a board member of the Global Fund for Community Foundations and the Foundations for Peace Network, I have long argued the rich potential that locally based community philanthropy around the world can provide to work in partnership with larger international foundations. The latter have access to resources and intelligence. Community philanthropy can take the pulse of the local circumstance and involve and empower local people, as well as devising local solutions in place of the one-size-fits-all model. This approach is particularly critical in divided and conflict-sensitive societies. And then there's the question of product. We would be profligate if philanthropic monies were wasted, given the level of need across the world. And again, Jeff noted the importance of shared learning. But progress will not be made towards smarter solutions unless independent philanthropy is prepared to take the risk of investing in the R&D. Research and development is the DNA of philanthropy, given its independence and potentially pioneering approach. As has often been said, but less often reflected in practice, the documentation and sharing of smart failures can be as valuable as successful philanthropic endeavours. But this requires a long-term perspective, as well as a critical lens on those structural and systemic barriers to progressive social change. Alongside the technical questions, it may also require an analysis of how those most affected by the impact of social need and injustice can be empowered to work for long-term change, together with posing hard questions about who profits from the status quo of misery and inequity. As Jeff suggested to us, philanthropy is like a journey, but for those who know the roads in this part of the world, there are invariably a few potholes along the way. But change, like peace, as the poet W.B. Yeats wrote, often comes dropping slow. And philanthropy, alongside measuring impact, needs the ability, persistence, and confidence to celebrate the possibilities of ambiguity. And given that we're here in Belfast tonight, can I assure you that if charitable foundations had sought to log frame the product of their contribution to peace building and social justice during the Troubles in Northern Ireland in the 1970s and the 1980s, and even into the 1990s, and indeed this decade, they would have closed up shop and resorted to a sympathetic counsellor. And yet, those same foundations that kept faith with our convoluted and often contradictory process made an incredible difference in helping us to identify pathways out of violence, notwithstanding the difficulties. So here's to ambiguity. And the final point that I want to pick up is a controversy around philanthropic size and footprint. Not something, I hasten to add, that the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland has ever had much to worry about. However, Nelson Mandela, in his inauguration speech, addressed this challenge when he pointed out, and I quote, "Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. The trick is to what extent can philanthropy liberate and create space for others to achieve their full potential, both by example and supportive encouragement to those at all levels of society." Jeff has eloquently communicated how a sense of connection with others can be a shared experience irrespective of personal circumstances. But this is Ireland, The UK, Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland, even the names define us and confuse us. And I have referred to imagination. So I will leave you with the lines of a poem by a local poet, Louis MacNeice, which perhaps captures both our challenge and our opportunity. What is the truth, says Pilate, waits for no answer. Double your stakes, says the clock to the aging dancer. Double the guards, says authority, triple the bars. Holes in the sky, says the child, scanning the stars. So Sláinte agus as sail agat, as Ray said on many occasions, health and life to you, as philanthropists working together and with others in scanning the stars. Thank you.